So if you've watched my other video on the importance of not plagiarizing your work and giving the people whose original ideas and writings and thoughts, etc., you are putting forward in your assignment their credit, what we need to now think about is, well, how do we do that? How do we source it? Now, it may be the case that your teacher, your lecturer, your exam board may be quite happy for you to just provide a list of the different books and websites that you got your information from on the bottom of your document. So if I scroll down to the bottom of this one, okay, what you can see here is sometimes you can just write sources and then just literally paste in the name of the source at the bottom of the document. Sometimes that's enough. And the same with websites. So if you've been, for example, to a website and you found some information, sometimes just copying and pasting the URL is enough for your exam board, for your teachers to see that you have recognized where you got the information from. Now, what I will say is that sometimes people will say, I got stuff from Google. Google is not a source. Google is a search engine. Google is the mechanism that you use to find potential sources. Okay, so it's not a source of information itself, it's a search engine. So I've used this source in my document. My document's about e-safety, and I got some of my information from the NSPCC here. So I may have looked, for example, in schools and colleges. I might have found some information about the importance of safeguarding people and so on. So sometimes I can just literally copy this URL and just paste it into the bottom. And sometimes that's enough for people. In other cases, you need to do a more academic approach to sources so that it is done in a specific way that is internationally recognized as a standard way of doing something. And in that case, you're going to probably want to use the tools that exist in Word in the references at the top here on this tab. So I'll show you how this works. So the easiest way to do this is go to Manage Sources and click New. And then what that will enable us to do is to put in all the sources that we know we are going to be using. So we may have been given a reading list. We may have been given a set of URLs that we can use as part of our research. It might be books, journals, PDF versions of books and things like that. So the easiest way to do this is to just basically complete this list of sources, which you can then cite later. So there are several options here: books, a section of a book, a journal article, an article in a periodical, reports, websites, etc., etc. So there's lots of different options here. So if we go for book, so first thing I need to do is put in the author of the book. Okay, so type in the name of the author. You'll find all this information in the book itself. Usually on the first couple of pages, it tells you who the author is and when it was published and so on. Okay, then we want the title of the book in here. It will tell you the year that it was published. You don't necessarily have to put the city and the publisher. Publisher's useful if you know who the publisher is. It is expected you would put that in there. And if it's the first edition or the second edition of the book, you might want to include that as well. Now, there are more bibliography fields if you tick this box, but generally speaking, you don't always need these. If the book's been put together from other sources or it's sections from other books and in some way it's been edited, then you may need to add an editor if it's part of a volume or number of volumes, etc. But for the most part, it'll probably just be a standard book. Okay, now you can give this a tag name, which will make it easier to cite from later on. So I'll just stick with the one it's giving me, but you can change it to something else if it makes life easier. Okay, so I could go with something like that. Then I know this book's about e-safety and it's written by Smith, and then I just click OK, and it creates, as you can see here, this list of books that I can use. And if I copy them across to this side, it will just kind of keep them in the list. If I copy them across to this side, it lets me use them as cited sources within this document. And you can just keep clicking new. And if we go to a website, you can see here it's slightly different. Do you know the author of the website? Now, if you don't, then that's fine. It doesn't always tell you. Sometimes I know the website that I just used was NSPCC, so I could potentially put the NSPCC as the author of that. Sometimes it will tell you if it's a blog, for example, or if it's an article on a news website. Sometimes it will tell you who the author is. Sometimes we don't know. Does the web page have a name? What's the year that it was published? Now, again, you don't always know this stuff, but you can certainly put the year, the month, and the day that you accessed it. So if it was today, okay, it would be February. Now, this is important because websites, they get updated all the time. So we need to make sure that we are putting in when we actually accessed this information, because when whoever's looking at our work goes to look at it, it may have been updated, it may have changed, it may have even been taken down as a website, it may not even exist anymore. Okay, so I'm going to copy this URL and then I'm going to paste it in here. Okay, and that's all I have to do. And again, I've got a tag name here. So I might want to call this, NSPCC Feb 22, something that'll just help me later on. So let's click OK. And then we can close that because we've listed some sources now. Now, if you're in the college, chances are you will be expected to use Harvard as your style. It's the kind of standard that most educational places in the UK use. There are different ones. You may be requested if you are in a different establishment to use a different one, but we use Harvard Anglia. So if I have quoted, for example, or got an idea from somewhere like here, then I can insert a citation from whichever book, I've got it from, and it will just drop that in there for me. And the same, if I quote that again later on, I could insert a citation there. If you can't see the book coming up, it's because it may not be coming up, as a source, for example, in here. So you can just move them backwards and forward. So if I copy that over there, now I've got this NSPCCs coming up in there as well. So I should be able to insert now a citation from the NSPCC. Okay. ND just means no date. So because we didn't know the date it was published. All right. But that's kind of how it works. And then when you finish putting all your citations in and you get to your sources, click where it says bibliography, and it gives you a couple of options. You can just put the reference in, you can put the work cited, or you can insert the bibliography, or if they are different for some reason, you can obviously use two or all three of them. If you insert bibliography here, you do get a few extra options. But if I just click here, references, you can see it automatically puts all of those references in there, and it pulls all the information from the list of managed sources. So we can see here all three books that I said I was going to use it because I moved them across to the current list. They're now in my bibliography. And because we selected Harvard as the style, it's put it in this format of surname and initial and year and title and so on. So we can see immediately it's all in the correct format, and the software has very helpfully, not only has it done that for us, it's even put this title in here called References, and much like tables of contents, at a later date, we can just come back and we can just click here and it will update and drop any new ones in if we've gone into here and we've added some new ones. So that's basically how you use those. It's quite a straightforward process, and it's a good idea to get used to doing this, especially if you're on higher level courses such as higher nationals, because this is kind of the expected way of doing things. And if you go off to university, this will most definitely be the way you're expected to do things.